Good afternoon. Welcome to the afternoon session of F8. I am Paula Cuneo. I'm the Director of Partner and Experience Marketing at Oculus. The next speaker, Isabel Tuas, is going to talk to us about designing for VR media. Isabel also has a fun fact. She is a voracious reader. Last year, she tried to read over 100 books in a single year. Turns out she couldn't do that. But the storytelling made her an incredible presenter and someone who will be really enjoyable to listen to. So please put your hands together for Isabel Tuas.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Isabel, and I work on the Oculus content team as a developer strategist. I help partners and app developers come to the Oculus platform to be available on Oculus Rift, Samsung Gear VR, and I'm excited to say, as of today, Oculus Go. Let's hear it. As you might have guessed, I'm here to talk to you today about an amazing product, a piece of hardware that seeks to change the way that people enjoy entertainment and media. And of course, I'm talking about the radio. Okay, stay with me. The radio was invented in the early 1910s, and initially, it was a two-way communication device only. It sent information using voice, thanks to audio technology. It was a critical product, and it influenced a lot of what we do today, actually. So at first, the radio's purpose was to transmit information, only working one-to-one, but the technology evolved, and people could gather in groups and listen to news updates together. This was magic at the time. People could sit and they could hear the same things instantly being read from across the world. And in fact, that was the beginning of broadcasting companies, some of which are still exist today. But Lee DeForest, one of the inventors of what we now know as the radio, had much more ambitious plans for his wireless technology, which is actually what it was called back then. He imagined a world in which it was not just used for information, but actually for mass enjoyment. And he was right. Soon people were gathering not just to listen to the news, but actually they were listening to stories being read out loud as they gathered with their families and friends. And the more time that people spent listening, the more uses the radio developed. Eventually, the technology became portable, obviously, something like this. Enjoying music was a huge part of what people loved about the radio. You could hear the incredible Duke Ellington leading the band from Harlem, broadcast all over the world. Instantly. That was the magic part. Now, some of this is actually what Lee DeForest had imagined, because he was a really big opera fan. And he thought, well, maybe one day this machine can actually emit music. But I don't think he could have imagined the way that it would change the way we hear music and news and stories for so many years to come. I would say that the radio, it didn't just change the way we listen, but it fundamentally changed the way that we think about listening. And now I say this because I think in VR we're at a very similar moment. We're still discovering how our technology will enhance people's lives and the way that they entertain themselves. And before we look too far forward, I want to take a quick look back. I want to share with you, so far, what are some of the things that we've learned from our work in mobile VR. And then focusing in, I want to share why I think Oculus Go is going to be a great device for entertainment, and leave you with some insights on design concepts and distribution opportunities that will serve you as you consider how to get involved in the growing VR ecosystem. OK, so let's rewind. Our work in mobile VR started at the end of 2015, when we partnered with Samsung to launch Gear VR, a high-quality headset that used the power of Samsung phones to fuel great VR experiences. And much like any mobile platform, people were really curious. What are these apps about? They downloaded a ton of apps. But what really amazed me, coming from the mobile ecosystem, is that unlike other platforms that I knew, they spent a really long time in them, some really long sessions. Here are some of the top time spent apps from just last year. People love the thrill of riding physically impossible rides and epic roller coasters, or long sessions scaring themselves and their friends on Face Your Fears, which I still to this day cannot finish. And they perfected their virtual poker faces in Poker VR. But they also spent a lot of time on apps like Hulu and Netflix, and other media apps like Within and Discovery VR and Facebook 360. This was really interesting to me. If you follow the VR industry, we often point to games as the major use of VR. But in fact, what we saw is that on Gear VR, 40% of people never even opened a game. And another crazy stat, 99% of people consume video in a myriad of different ways. In fact, if you look at the entire platform, of all of the time spent on this platform, 83% of it was spent on media and entertainment apps. I thought that was really interesting. And we came to the realization that media is one of mobile VR's predominant use cases. Now, this was one of the learnings from our mobile VR ecosystem that we considered when it first came to our standalone headset, Oculus Go. Specifically, it affected three main areas where we could improve. First, if people are spending long sessions in the headset, can we improve their comfort level? And then improving the technology to make media watching even more powerful. Lastly, getting these experiences into more people's hands. Okay, so let's start with the ergonomics. Some features, like the weight of the headset or the ease of putting it on, like you saw Hugo do this morning, well, they're already solved because you don't have to plug in a phone. But there were other areas that we wanted to improve. We spent a long time working on the facial interface to make sure that it feels light and comfortable against people's faces. We are also intentional about the design of the straps to make sure that the experience is comfortable for everyone. But I want to talk to you about my favorite part, which we mentioned a little bit this morning, and that's actually the comfort of the audio. We saw that most users actually don't plug in external headphones when using a mobile headset. And if they're spending all that time watching video, how are they hearing it? So we designed this external audio speaker that you can't even see, but comfortably it gives you amazing spatialized audio built right in. It's amazing, and I can't wait for you to try it. We wanted to make sure that the media and entertainment really shines for anyone that's enjoying it in VR, whether or not they're using headphones. But we also made tech improvements that make entertainment even more enjoyable. Things like apps that support refresh rates of 72 Hertz, so that this soccer field can look so lively and bright. But my favorite part is called fixed foveated rendering. It does something amazing for any app that has a 3D rendered environment. And just follow me through this. So what we do is we optimize this white part in the middle. That's where most people look. And we can spend most of the performance there at full resolution. But if you imagine that you're cutting the image up into 19 parts outside of that, what we do is we actually decrease the resolution as you go along until you get to the very corners. This graph is a little hard to read, so let me show you what that actually looks like. This is a screenshot from one of our apps on Oculus Go. It looks amazing here, and it looks amazing in the headset. But if I force your eyes just to the very corner, you can see what I mean. And it looks blurry there, but actually to the human eye, that corner is completely imperceptible. The fact that we're spending the performance in the center means that people have the best focus on the important part of their experience. I love that. Okay, so we've spent all this time getting people comfortable and creating breathtaking experiences in VR. And now we're excited to get it into more people's hands. And this part is pretty simple. There's two main features. The first one, because there is no plug-in phone, we've made a headset that's compatible with major mobile platforms. There'll be a companion app that you can use to set it up, to download and browse content, and that app is available on both iOS and Android. And another big part of it, of course, is the price. We've made Oculus Go starting at $199, as you've heard, which we think is a really accessible, amazing price for an all-in-one headset. Now, all of this shows great promise for Oculus Go as a media and entertainment device. But why do these categories matter in VR? Well, I think that just like the radio changed the way that we think about listening, I think VR can change the way that we think about perceiving. So for example, if I try to tell you about the Taj Mahal, what technologies would I use to do that? Thanks to the printing press, I could write it down for you. I can tell you that it's breathtaking and it's huge, it's 42 acres. I can maybe show you a picture of it so you get a better sense of how beautiful it is. And with the video, I was able to show you people walking around so you have a better sense of scale. But in VR, you can actually see it for yourself. In the headset, using the New York Times app, you can be there. And as you move your head from side to side, you can be a traveler observing this mausoleum on your own. I think this is an amazing concept. And it's a concept that's going to affect the way that we think of media and entertainment, since we can now be fully immersed in it. I want to talk you through some categories of developers that I've worked with to launch on Oculus Go. I think we have a chance to change the way that we educate ourselves about the news, with partners like BBC, Al Jazeera, and CNN bringing their stories to the platform. We think that the ability to bring viewers in to the scene of a story can forever change the way that journalists do their jobs. Oculus Go will also offer entertainment from household names like Hulu and Netflix and Fox Sports VR, which you can enjoy on a virtual screen, which maybe is a lot bigger than the one that you own at home. But it's also bringing new entertainment from partners like Melody VR, which offer you front row seats to your favorite concerts from different angles in 360 video for all of your favorite artists. We've seen quite a few video aggregators offer the service of curating great content made especially for VR. And people are really eager to discover what those videos look like. And the last category, we've seen utility apps that allow you to enjoy the media you already own, now in an immersed environment. Some of them even let you bring your friends with you. What I think is interesting about this is that it's really going to help people start to use Oculus Go as a media and entertainment device, which makes the opportunity larger for all app developers. Now, I've worked with a lot of these partners, as I mentioned, on their launch for Oculus Go, so I want to share some insights with you, specifically about design and distribution of your own content. Starting with one of the biggest hurdles that you might encounter when you make your first VR experience. Suddenly, you're designing a world, not just a window. And what I mean by that is, all of a sudden, you don't have a 2D screen that you have to fill to convey your message. You now actually have an entire environment. And you have to be really intentional. You have to create something that speaks to your content and to your brand. That means that the first time that people step into it will be a memorable one. Make sure that you offer a really warm welcome. We've seen this make a difference for long-time retention, and it's worth spending time thinking about the first-time user experience. Like in the real world, audio is an important part of the experience. And I actually think that it's important in a way that's very unique to VR. Make sure that you optimize for spatialized audio that we've built right into the headset. Let me show you how CNN took on this challenge. When building for VR for the very first time, they wanted to set themselves apart. They wanted to create the look and feel of a newsroom, so users could feel in charge of navigating the news like nowhere else. Let's take a quick look.
This This is CNN in virtual reality.
Now, this ticker at the top is very quintessential CNN. You can notice the audio and the way that it enhances the experience. The spheres that you see there in VR, you can actually pick them up with your hands to play a video. It's very unique, and it's an entire world, and it really does feel different than any CNN app that exists on other platforms, because they have built an entire environment that surrounds you. But on the other hand, I don't want to discourage you from including flat elements into your experience. What I mean by that is that flat or 2D elements can be really familiar, and they're easy to use. And you have to remember that ease of use should always outweigh the wow factor. I know this might be a little different than what other people tell you, but I actually think it's incredibly important that you anchor really amazing VR experiences in things that are familiar to people, so that they don't spend the entire time trying to figure out how to use your app. This is especially true if you have long text. I've seen a lot of people try to reinvent how we read, and I just don't think it's going to happen. Feel free to use a 2D surface to allow people to read a large amount of text. I want to walk you through an example from Al Jazeera. In their series, The Syrian Refugee Crisis, they gave teenager refugees a 360 video camera to record their own stories. And you can first explore these with rectilinear photos that you can browse through. And that gives you a sense of the behind-the-scenes experience. And it's quick, and it's easy. And then you can go into the video and take it in.
يعني مثلا هو قاعد على انه كنا احنا مبسوطين ببيتنا بسوريا، لما اجينا هون على المخيم صارت يعني عباره عن كرفانات وانه هون نتاقلم.
Now, I highly recommend this video series just because it's amazing. It's really enjoyable to watch in VR. But I specifically want to point to this example because of the 2D flat surfaces that you see in the UI. Look how easy it is to read the comments about this video. Even though in the 360 video you're surrounded, you don't necessarily want the text to be all around you so that you have to find it. This is familiar and it's quick. You instantly know how to scrub through that video. You instantly can see the information on this video. Feel free to use 2D or flat UI or elements when it feels right. And lastly, one of the biggest superpowers that we've talked about in VR is co-presence, what we call social synchronous experiences at the same time. Now, these experiences can be really powerful, and you've heard us talk a little bit about them. But in fact, what I want to say to you is that make sure that if you're creating social co-presence, you're introducing it in a meaningful way. Remember to ask yourself, what value does having another person present at this moment do for my experience or my app? And I've seen many people fall into this. It takes a really long time to build a great social experience. Don't take it lightly, take it seriously. It does require a long time. And part of that long time is being mindful and knowledgeable about any possible moderation, especially if you expect the experience to be public. Always remember to be considerate and intentional about this. With Oculus Venues, a new experience that allows you to enjoy live entertainment with other Oculus users, we've actually leveraged some of the technology that we have available, our Avatars SDK. And we've created a social co-watching experience that people can enjoy right out of the box. Let's take a quick look at that. Now, you saw some of this in Hugo's keynote earlier today, but we place people into great amphitheater, and you can actually interact with other users around you, if they're your friends in Oculus. This is going to be live entertainment coming through sporting events, concerts, comedy nights, and more. Those are the 3 things, high-level concepts I wanted to share with you, and that I want you to keep in mind as you think about making a VR experience. But the question you might be asking yourself at this point is, okay, how do I get in? How do I distribute my content to the Oculus platform? And there are some options that I want to walk you through lightly today. The first thing that you have to ask yourself is, what format do you have available? Anything all the way from rectilinear 2D, 180 or 360 video, all the way to real-time rendered CG. These are the formats that you might have or that you might consider making. And then I like to think about it in 2 buckets. First, there are platforms that are only open to select partners. And then there are platforms that are open to submission. In terms of select partners, you start with video aggregator applications. Now, these are platforms that might require contracts or select partnerships, since they tend to be curated. But platforms like Next or Jaunt or Within are great places to start and take a look at. We've also made some options as far as Oculus apps go, with Oculus Venues and Oculus TV, which Hugo showed earlier today, that has rectilinear video. Again, these are all closed to select partners, but they are available. And in terms of open for submission, of course, I would tell you that the most customizable way to get into VR is to make your own app. But I would also be honest with you that that takes time and resources. But in a custom application, like you saw from CNN and Al Jazeera, you can include any type of content that you have available. Oculus and Facebook also offer options for you. Oculus Video, which you can submit to, accepts 180 and 360 video, and Facebook 360, by uploading through your Facebook page, also allows 180 and 360 video. This is a little bit of a cheat sheet, and I won't go into too much further detail, but I wanted to give a shout out to Oculus for Creators, which is a website that we launched just last week. And here you can take a deeper look at all of those options, especially on how to distribute your content. Because the truth is, we spent a long time thinking about creators, those that are at the forefront, that are using VR technology to entertain people. And I like to think back on people like this, because at the end of the day, the radio would not have evolved without artists, which is what I'm going to call these people, who are creating amazing sound effects. The radio shows that actually took off entertainment and radio would have been nothing without people creating sound effects like this. And I think that similarly, just like the radio, we expect that it's going to be amazing experiences that people here build that will help VR develop and become meaningful to people. And whether you're building amazing media and entertainment, or education, or games, or anything else that we're excited to see you do. Thank you so much for coming to this talk. I'll be over by the door after. If you have questions, I'm happy to talk to you. Please, they told me to ask you to fill out my survey, but that's also my Twitter handle if you want to talk to me there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Isabel Tuez. If you want to talk to Isabel about her love of fixed boviated rendering, please do that in the back. The next session starts at 2 o'clock, and again, I would ask that everyone clean up the things around them and respect the space. Thanks so much.